Welcome, 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 everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We do apologize. We had some few internet issues and technical difficulties, but we got that sorted out. So we're happy to be here. This is our another Saturday. Another Saturday we're here presenting another Remember the 400 presentation. We're happy to be here. My name is Jacob.
My name is Taya, and we're bringing you today another Freedom Month special. So we're going to talk to you about some important topics. It can be a little difficult to talk about these things. Sometimes they might be a little controversial. But that's what Remember the 400 is about, having these dialogues, this discourse, to really get to the root of the issues that are facing us, to address them, to make a better change for our future. So that's what we are here to do today, and we're hoping to bring a youth perspective to it. And so if you guys have any questions, comments, you want to share your opinion on anything we're discussing, please feel free to share it on the YouTube chat, in the Instagram DMs, anything like that. We want to hear from you guys as well. Yeah. And so we're just going to get right into it, and we're really excited to be with you guys here today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So the topic of today is building lasting change, and we emphasize lasting change. We're not talking change that'll,
for a week,
for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month,
even a year.
Right. We're talking change that will propel forward into the future. So we find ourselves, since we got to this so-called Western Hemisphere, to say, we find ourselves in this cyclical nature where we're kind of just repeating the same things that we've seen since we got here.
And to go further on that, like since 1619 when we got here, we've been fighting for equality, fighting for the end of slavery, fighting for the end of racial segregation, Jim Crow laws, fighting against police brutality. And obviously, we need to take a second to thank those people that came before us and made those changes, all of our freedom fighters, known and unknown, because they let us be here right now having this conversation with you guys, and they've done amazing things. However, as you guys know, we're still fighting today in 2020. And it's literally 401 years since we've gotten to this side of the world, and we're still fighting. And, we don't want that to be the case another 401 years from now. So these are the discussions that we need to have to, like you said, propel and have that lasting change for the future generations, so that we can just build a better future for ourselves and everybody involved, really.
Right.
So we need to address,
Go ahead.
we need to address what the issues are that are in our way. And then, of course, once we address that, how do we come about making solutions? How do we come about solving those problems and addressing them head on? Right.
So we'll jump into kind of, I believe, is probably one of our biggest problems is our financial habits. It's to be self-sufficient, you need some type of financial structure.
You need the funds to kind of navigate this world, to be able to set things up for you and your family, to live comfortably, to live healthy. You need money.
So we find our people specifically very, 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 very big in consumerism. We need to have the latest shoes, the latest
devices,
gadgets, the latest cars, the latest fashion, the latest this, that, kind of living out of our means. Like, do we really have the money to be doing all that?
Right.
No, but we do it because, I don't know, we want to look good for our brothers, our sisters, our neighbors, who are all in the same struggle anyways.
Yeah, we use it as like a proxy for our worth, or, how much we have. And obviously that doesn't equate to each other. Right. You are worth more than the shoes on your feet, worth more than the iPhone you have. And so we have this bad habit of just spending our money as soon as we get it. And when we speak about the black dollar and how long it stays in the black community, especially compared to other communities, it's very short. It's about 6 hours. Right. So we get our money, and we have about 6 hours of it going to black businesses or black business owners. But we're more likely to go spend that on businesses of another race or another ethnicity. Right. And a part of that issue is because we don't own things. Right. If we don't have that infrastructure, if we don't have those institutions that we can spend our money at, of course, we're going to have to spend that elsewhere.
Exactly. And that kind of leads to, like what you were saying, it's just going into other communities. It's not being reinvested back into ourselves, right? And that could be very detrimental, because then you have no self-sufficiency. You can't really depend on yourself. I can't go to Taya to say, hey, Taya, can I come to your grocery store and do this and do that? Or can I come here and, I don't know, get my hair cut or this, that? I mean, barbershops are definitely, we're very big in that field. So maybe that was a bad example. But you get the idea, right? We need to be able to go to each other for what we need. And that is lacking in our community, to be honest with you.
And not only will that, of course, increase like our economic freedom, because we are sharing our money within our community, but it builds that sense of community. It helps us go to each other, lean on each other, someone that understands the perspective you're coming from, because people outside of, us, they're not going to completely understand the things we're going through. And so having that community that can help you address any issues you might have or help you further yourself, is super important, and that's definitely one of the issues that we feel like we're seeing in the community now.
So how do we go about solving this issue? You know, there's a couple things. Is a big trend right now is buy black, right? Support black businesses. Support your brothers, your sisters. You know, we need that support to keep that dollar circulating within our own community.
And a part of being able to get that support is increasing the awareness of the black businesses that are local to you, that are around. And that's something, remember, the 400 has been doing, especially in this Freedom Month. We're highlighting black businesses that you can spend your dollar at. So if you don't know that these businesses exist, you can't shop at them. Right. So we're trying to increase awareness of what is in our community, what's available to us, people in our community that are entrepreneurs, so that we can support black, buy black, share black.
Another thing is even just promoting entrepreneurship. I find that even when I was growing up in school, it was always about get good grades, go to school, and get a job.
Yeah.
Right? It was never really create a job for yourself or create your own type of something that you can build up and live off your own. It was always get a job and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Right?
And of course, it's important. You need to get a job. You need to be able to support yourself, your family. But just letting children know that there's another route available to them. You can also be an entrepreneur. You can start a business. If you have some good ideas, make it happen. You know, reach out to those in your community and talk about how you can build that for yourself, for your family.
Another thing that we can touch on as well is, you know, saving and investing. It's something that I feel like what Teo was saying, the black dollar stays in the community for maybe about 6 hours. It doesn't really go back into us. So if we can kind of discipline ourselves to save and invest, you know, it would kind of build that discipline and obviously, you know, build that lasting type of financial pattern, right? Where we can kind of just put some aside. It trains your mind. It starts to train your mind to say, okay, did I really need to spend $200-300 on that latest Jordan? I just bought the Jordans that dropped last month, or I just bought the iPhone that just came out. Do I really need that?
Yeah.
No.
And I find myself checking myself.
Right.
I'll see a commercial or something on social media. I'm like, ooh, I want that. I'm like, hey, hold on.
And another thing too is that what we need to understand is a lot of these marketing and commercials are geared towards us, right? They put on the hip hop songs. They put out sometimes black actors, things like that, because they know it's going to entice us to be like, wow, I need that, right? So we got to be aware that when we're watching these things, they're really targeting you to say, hey, come here,
spend your money,
come. It's kind of like they're kind of reeling us in, right? So we got to be aware when we're watching these things and realize that we are kind of being targeted because they know that we are the number one consumers. They know that we need to have the latest this and latest that. So they're going to target you, right? So we got to be really, really aware of that.
Another thing we want to address is that we have to plan for the future, our future, future of your children, your families. And so again, that goes in hand with saving, investing. So you have a nest egg, you have a rainy day fund when things happen, because obviously life inevitably happens to all of us. And an example of that even is having life insurance. You know, having that money set aside so that when that day comes, you know, your children are cared for. Your children have something to fall back on. And so that's something that I feel like I wasn't taught much about until recently in my life. And I think it's important for a lot of people to consider that, investment.
And another thing that we can touch on is even the teamwork aspect, right? I feel that there's a lot of, it's like every man for themselves type of thing, right? Whereas if you were to come together and I put $5 together, you put $5 together, your mom puts $5, my mom, so on and so forth, it builds like this pool of funds that we just have access to if we need to do anything with it, right? As opposed to just thinking, oh, I got to do this all on my own. I got to, you know what I mean? If you look at the other nations, you look at the Indian, the Chinese, that's what they do, really. There'll be like 20 of them in a house. I mean, maybe I'm over exaggerating, but there'll be a bunch of them in a house and they're just saving up. Okay, this family can now go buy their house. Okay, we'll help them buy that house.
Yep.
This one can help buy that house, and we'll let them help them buy that house. So it's kind of like a good setup they have to kind of just
by working together.
So I feel that's something that we lack amongst our people.
I remember I saw a story that was actually very inspirational. I think it was on social media. A group of 5 or so black young men saved up together and they bought a house together as an investment property and then leased it out or whatever the case is. But it's easier to work together. You can reach your goals quicker when you work together as opposed to you working on your own and maybe not getting the thing that you're trying to get. And so just remembering that we can work together. We can push each other forward, build each other up, and to get to those end goals so that everybody is wealthy, everybody eats, everybody's doing well together as a collective.
And this kind of leads us into our next topic we kind of want to touch on is that division amongst our people. You know, obviously we live in a time in society where there's a lot of, I guess, negative things pushed at us, right? From police brutality to racism to whatever, inequality in the healthcare, inequality in the workplace, right? But then there's also internal strife that we face. And this kind of goes back to 1619. It goes back to slavery, where you had the house slave, you had the field slave, you had the dark skin, you had the light skin, right? And we're just kind of perpetuating that to this day, where there's a lot of, oh, he's too light, or she's too dark, and there's a lot of that. And that's really a big, big issue. If we're talking that we need to come together and be, as a team, we can't be looking at each other in that sense.
Yeah. And like you said, it dates right back to when slavery started. It's self-hate, really, and that's what they taught us. That's what they put on us when we got here. And so I understand where it came from, and hopefully you guys understand where it came from. But at this point, 2020, we need to check ourselves for those ideas, those perceptions that we have and not even realize sometimes. And we need to come together, like Jacob was saying, so that as a unit, as a collective, we can move forward as one, instead of being separated based on things that really don't matter in the long run. Day,
right? Doesn't matter who has looser hair, or whose skin is lighter, or whose skin is tighter, or whose hair is tighter, or whatever the case may be. We find ourselves bickering over the smallest things, where it's like, is that really substantial? Does that really help us to move from the position we're in?
Right.
No, it doesn't, because at the end of the day, we're all looked at as a people, as one people, right? They're people who are looking at us. They're not gonna separate us. So why are we separating ourselves, right? And that's something that we really have to come to grips with, and it's a big problem, And until we can really close the gap between that division, we're always going to be stuck in this perpetual cycle that we're in. The self-hate, the violence against each other, things like that. What block, what neighborhood are you from? We don't own any of the neighborhoods, so why does it matter? Why does it matter what block you're from? Because we don't know. It doesn't belong to us.
And you're picking up issues that are so long ago, like things that, again, that were done to us, systems that were put in place to ruin us and to bring us down, to cause our demise, and we're perpetuating that. Right. And you might not even realize it. So we have to really, really try and check ourselves, check those around us, because that all needs to fall away. 2020, we don't have the time. We've literally gone, like I said, 401 years to this point. We don't have that time to waste at this point. We need to move forward. We have to stop thinking individually. We have to stop thinking in a divisive way. Right. It's time for us to come together, and I think that's a big hurdle for us. If you don't work together, you can't get as far as you want to go. Right. So how do we solve that?
How do we solve that? Is few things. So develop inter-community relationships, right? If you go to a school and if you have a child that goes to a school, little black boy, maybe there's 5 other black kids in that school, maybe reach out to the parents of those children, come together and maybe address the schools as to things as, what our children need, and so on and so forth, right? If you see maybe another business down the street, a black-owned business, develop some type of, if you do welding or whatever, and you see they do carpentry, hey, if you need carpentry, I have my brother down the street, he does that. Right, so develop that inter-community relationship. That way, there's kind of like a net of just a web. It's all connected, right?
We can lean on each other when we need each other, and then when we go, like you said, if we have to go to the school board about something affecting our children in school, we come as a united front. We're stronger because we're seen as a group. Whereas if you go on your own, they might not listen to you, they might not hear you. Right. But together, they can't deny that. They can't push you to the side when you have voices and you have people with you speaking about the same issues.
And right, and even that togetherness is the collaboration. I find that today it's more of a compete environment as opposed to a collaborate environment. We're always trying to compete with the other person or the other. You know what I mean? Oh well, I have these on. What do you have on? Or I got this iPhone. What do you iPhone? What do you have? Or you're on Android. Or you're on this. Or you're on that. Like things that just really don't. He can't hang with us because he's on Android, or he can't hang with us because he's not wearing Gucci. It's like, why are we competing for? Yeah. Right? We all came on the same boat, maybe different stops.
But again, the reason is society has put us in this situation, right? Like, we're competing because we feel like we are competing for limited resources. Right. Not realizing that if you work together, if you collaborate, you'll get those resources faster. You'll attain those goals faster. But again, this is kind of what we've been trained to believe, trained to see ourselves as, and we have to break that cycle ourselves because nobody's going to do it for us.
Right, and that just goes back to what you're saying. Check yourself. Self-reflection. Really just check yourself for these things. If you find yourselves having these thoughts in your mind, really stop and say, whoa, pause for a second. Is this helping me? Is this helping my people? Is this bettering my situation? 9 out of 10 times, probably not. right? So really checking yourself and really just, accepting the fact that, maybe I need to change my thinking pattern. Maybe this is not the best way of thinking.
And that leads us into our next topic, which is accepting the truth. And that's a broad subject, but essentially you have to relearn a lot of things about yourself, about your people, about our condition and how we got here, because we are not given the truth. Through our schooling systems, through the media, through all these things that we consume, we're either given a small version of the truth or a complete lie, right? And so you have to go out of your own way to learn what you weren't taught, because we've been miseducated. We've been led to believe that we are inferior to others. We've been led to believe that we are not capable of anything, really.
And really, it kind of dates back to like the Jim Crow stuff, right? From when we got here, they took our names, took our culture, took our way of life, took away our diet. Started feeding us things like, we don't need this kind of stuff. Like, what are we doing? All that stuff, it plays a role on our well-being, right?
But a lot of people don't want to talk about it, right? You don't want to address slavery and address the things that were done to our forefathers, our ancestors, because it is a hard topic and it's ugly. But if we don't address it, you're not going to understand who we are. You're not going to understand how we got to the point we're at today.
And hence the title, Remember the 400, because you need to remember these things, right? We can't ignore them and push them under the rug, because then you won't remember it and try to change that. Okay, how did I get here?
You'll be bound to repeat the same mistakes.
Right. So definitely touching on that topic is very, very sensitive, but it is something that we need to come to grips with, is really accepting our truth. And our truth is we go back further than slavery. We really got to dig into who we really are and really accept it. And, a big controversial topic today is kind of, I don't really want to come out there and boldly say it, but I'm going to have to, right? Is Christianity and all these false religions that were kind of put on us, right? We didn't come to these parts of the world with that philosophy. This was something that was given to us by the slave masters. And it's something that was given to us and was put in us so hard that today we carry it on freely, right? And when you're told to, hey, go look into how that started, our people get offended at that. Like, oh, why are you telling me this? Why?
Even as an example, I was doing some research into slavery in Canada. Okay, so the first slave in Canada was brought here in 1629. So that's only 10 years after slavery started in the United States. And the only records we have of this person, his name is Olivier Lejeune. That is obviously not his birth name. That is a Canadian French name. And if you look into the records of his life, he was brought here, his employer, his slave master, they call him employer to soften the blow of reality, but his slave master changed his name, had him baptized in the Christian faith, and made him live his life that way. And at the end of the day, that doesn't stop you from being a slave. It didn't stop this specific person from being, inherited, traded, bought, and sold. But we, like you said, we hold on to that because we are not looking back further. So who were we before 1619 when we got to the Americas? We had a history. We had a culture. We had a way of life. But unfortunately, in the schools, they only tell you slavery.
That's where we started.
That's the start of the story. Slavery, and then they jump to Martin Luther King.
And sometimes not even slavery, indentured servants, right?
Yeah.
They don't even want to say slavery. They want to say indentured servants, like we were paid in some type of form, which we weren't.
And again, looking into Canadian slavery, I saw a term, internship.
Oh, wow, that's a new one.
The slaves were interns. And because in Canada, a lot of the work that they did was, we didn't have the same crops and sugar fields and stuff that they had in the Caribbean and American South, but here, our slaves tend to work in their slave masters' businesses or as fishermen and lumberjacks. So they were interns.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you look back into it and you look with a critical eye, you look to examine it, it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. And it just strips us of our identity. It strips us of who we are. And so once you look into it and have these difficult conversations, it's not easy. It hurts, to look into your past and see how your ancestors, your forefathers were treated. It's sad in a lot of ways, but we have to address that to make those changes for ourselves, but also, for the next 400 years, for our generations that are coming next, because we don't want to be in the same fight 400 years from now. 400 years from now, I want to know that my great-great-great-great-grandchildren are good. They're set up.
And for those watching, let us know how you guys feel about that. Like I said, these are topics that we all need to start talking about. Even it starts in the home. So let us know how you guys feel. Maybe we can address a few questions or comments later on.
Definitely.
But it's juicy stuff that we really have to get into, and it's hard because it's something that is fed into you, and it so many generations have gone, hundreds of years have gone, and now you have to kind of just stop that.
Yep.
So it's like going from eating meat to vegan. Like it's just
it's a
hard thing.
You have to change your thought patterns.
Right.
You have to change just the way you carry yourself. If we're using that example, you got to change where you shop.
Mm-hmm.
You got to change your knowledge about the food you're eating.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to change your actions, your perceptions, your beliefs. Like it's a full body system change that you have to undergo. But it's worth it in the end. It really is.
Right. Well, another thing too is we're comfortable. Right. We accept the things how they are. We don't want to seek change. We don't want to seek. Well, I'm comfortable how I am. Why would I change that?
Yeah.
Right. And that's our problem sometimes is we get too comfortable. Right. And that really stops the moving forward. We're trying to build that change, right? You can't start building. I mean, on Eglinton, here, those who live in Toronto, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Eglinton has been under construction probably for about 10 years. At least. I don't know what's going on over there, but they start, they stop. They start, they stop. They start. And that's kind of, I see that's our pattern between our people. You kind of start, we get comfortable. I did enough for today. I'll take a break. And then when you take that break, you probably won't get back to it for another while, right? And that's something that we really need to change, and just it's a real big issue that we see. And how do we change these things?
So like I touched on, you have to learn about your history, not only like specific to where you are. So I've been reading a lot about Canadian slavery, but in general the world history, because it is all connected. And the same patterns that I'm seeing here in Toronto, I'm seeing here in Canada, I know are happening in the U.S. I know are happening in the Caribbean, in England,
everywhere.
Europe. And so really learning your history and how all of that falls into play with the world and how it is today. So history leading up to what we are dealing with today.
Education is key.
Education, and not only for yourself, but once you learn, I think you have a responsibility to teach others. Yeah, you can't just learn and, okay, I'm going to sit with this knowledge. No. You have to bring it. You have to bring it to your family, your coworkers, your classmates, whatever the case is, so that we can grow based on that shared knowledge, that shared education that we now have.
And in the process of that sharing thing is we got to practice humility. We got to understand that we don't know it all, right? We don't. And I find that there's always this combative environment or combative something that goes on. Combative response that when we're trying to tell our own people about, hey guys, I learned this is wrong, we got to change this. There's something combating there where
it's like it's not a judgment.
Right.
It's not a judgment because, like I said, society has been shaped in this way. We've been here for 401 years. That's a long time for all of these patterns to rest and to get comfortable in. But once you realize, once you know better, you do better, is that a saying. And so we have to know better and encourage everyone around us to know better and do better as well.
Pretty much be open to correction, right? And not taking everything that's brought to us as a personal attack. It's not a personal attack, right? It's just, I mean, you so happen to be involved in that somehow, but we're not attacking you per se, but we just want to enlighten you, right?
And that even goes beyond the Black community as well. I've had numerous conversations with, people of other races and ethnicities, telling them history, telling them facts, telling them my own perceptions and experiences, and they take it as, well, I'm not racist, or okay, but I didn't, they take it automatically as a personal affront when it's bigger than just the one person. It's bigger than you and me.
Right.
It's an experience that millions of people are facing worldwide. And so in general, no matter who you are or what you are, you have to be able to learn, you have to be humble about it, and acknowledge the things that have happened.
Right.
There are horrible, horrible, disgusting things that have happened, but we all have to acknowledge it to move forward, and that's a responsibility on everybody.
So we'll jump to our next slide there, which we were kind of talking about, is that comfort zone. We're complacent, right? We find that these things happen every so often, every few years. You had the Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, Sandra Bland, Tamir Rice. Name some names.
And those are just the ones we know about.
Those are the ones we know about that have been kind of just put out there, right?
Yeah, and we see it happen every time. We have police brutality. We have the police, killing somebody in the streets for no reason, little reason. And then we get angry, and we should. We get angry, we protest, we try and speak with, governments and political leaders, and we try and make changes in our lives that are big and small, and that is the appropriate response.
Right.
But unfortunately, after a while, it dies down.
Right.
After a while, we go back to our lives. After a while, we forget those names. We don't say those names anymore. And then we pick it all back up again a couple years.
When it happens again. Right.
And so we need to keep that same energy.
Right.
Really. When that happens, and I'm happy to say that right now, since George Floyd died, since Ahmaud Arbery or Breonna Taylor, I think, in my experience, this is kind of the longest push I've seen in a long time in terms of, social activism and us trying to fight for a change. And I'm proud of it, and I think it's beautiful to see. But I need that to continue.
Right.
I need that same energy. I need that same fight, that same push, because not only do I need it, like we as a people need it to make those changes for ourselves.
And like we said at the beginning of the presentation, these are issues from 1619, right? Roughly, maybe a little beyond that for Caribbean and places like that, but roughly 1619, these are issues we've still been facing. Why is there no solution to these issues? Right? Because we did it, got comfortable. We did it, got comfortable. And it's just this pattern of just complacency. Like we're just, once we get a little bit of results, we're happy. But I like to equate this, I spoke about Tay the other day, like you got to equate this like going to the gym, right? If you're trying to lose weight, you have your New Year's resolution, you go to the gym, it's packed, yes, you're on the elliptical, you're going hard, maybe for about 2-3 weeks. Yeah. You realize, oh, this is hard work.
Take a rest day.
Let me take a rest day. One rest day turns into another rest day. Another rest day turns into another rest day. One cheat meal turns into another cheat meal. So on and so on and so forth. And it just becomes your summer body. You didn't hit that goal, and then you're kind of, June hits and you're trying to go again. But it stopped already because you stopped that process. So now you got to start. You got to pick it up where you left off.
Yeah, we need to be consistent.
We need to be consistent because had we just kept going from January, June came. We're on the GQ. Well, it's not GQ. What's the magazine called? Men's Fitness, Men's Health, or whatever it is. Posing, Arnold Schwarzenegger, whatever it is. Right? You would have been there at your goal, but I find that with our people, it's very stop and go. You reach a certain point. Okay, we're happy with this. They gave us Black History Month. Okay, yeah. No, they gave us first Black History Week, right? Oh, everyone's happy. Yeah, it's a week. Oh, wait, week is too short. Okay, let's get a month. Oh, we got a month. Hey, all right. And they gave us Caravana. Oh, hey. Like, they just give us little bursts of things, right? But really and truly, is that really helping us?
And even now, with everything that's going on, they give us Black Lives Matter on the street. And we're like, okay, cool. And then we stop. But no, we have to keep going. Putting Black Lives Matter on the street is not solving the issue.
Right.
And so we need to see past that, see through that, because obviously, society, the way it's been for 401 years, we're not set up to succeed. They don't want to see us succeed, and we have to build that for ourselves. We have to go after it and get it ourselves. So we have to keep pushing through all of our fights and all the ways that we need to address systemic racism, from police brutality to the education system to the health system. It literally is in every facet of our lives, and we need to address them. We need to be focused when we address them and consistent when we address them. So, and that really kind of summing it all up, the things that we need to do, got to take constant action. Always. Small steps, big steps. So it can be small in your life, speaking with people in your household.
You're moving, right?
Right. Movement is movement. It could be small, and then it could be big. If you want to write a letter to Justin Trudeau here in Canada, or you want to write a letter to, the president of your country or anything like that, go for it. If you want to work with people in your community that are going about building positive and lasting change, do it. In your schools, in your workplaces, anywhere you can, you want to affect that change by taking constant action.
And when we say action, we're talking progressive action, right? We're not talking action that would be detrimental, right? You got to take progressive action, progressive steps. You want to move forward. You don't want to move backwards, right? So when we're taking action, we got to think of things that we really need as opposed to things that maybe want, that are not really necessary, right? So things that we really need. And what are the things we need? We need access to proper schooling, access to loans that we can start building our own businesses, access to, I don't know.
It's like all the things we were touching on.
All the things we were touching on. We need access to these. And reparations does play a big part in that.
And that's a hot topic right now.
Right, it is. But if we can't really manage ourselves as it is right now, what's going to happen when they throw a whole leap of money or whatever it is in your lap? What are you going to do? Because we haven't been doing these things for the last 400 years. So when we kind of get it, what do I do now? I sell commercial. Okay, let me buy the latest Benz then. Okay, right? We haven't trained ourselves to really do these things that we're talking about, right? This is why we're in that cyclical nature, right? So be progressive. And think progressive.
It starts with the individual. You have to want to make that change and be that change for yourself, and then expand it to those around you. Your family members, your community, anything like that. And so you kind of light that flame in yourself, and then it triggers and it makes a ripple effect so that your community is active in the social scene. You're really fighting for changes, and that's what we need. That's why with Remember the 400 and many other organizations, you know, it's important for us to get together, to work with the people in our communities to bring about these changes. It's not a one-man job. There's a lot that needs to be done. And
Definitely not a one-man
job. I'm sure you guys all know that. I know the viewers have experienced things in their own lives, have heard stories of other people's lives, of all the things that we're up against, all the hurdles and battles in front of us. And so that's what Remember the 400 wants to combat. We want to go about bringing social change, lasting social change. And there's a lot of different ways we can do that, like we touched on today. You know, we have our Buy Black movement. We're trying to highlight Black businesses. We have these events, rallies, and protests all across the world, trying to bring awareness to the situations we're in, trying to celebrate the fact that we've made it to this point, trying to get the attention of lawmakers, policy changers, politicians, and government officials, because they need to know that we stand together as a community. They need to know what we care about, what we need to change, and they have to address it. Right. And so building a collective, being a unit, is how we want to go about that at Remember the 400.
And really just be that change you want to see, right? You lead by example. You got to be that change you want to see. You can't be wavering. I find that sometimes there's this flip-floppy thing amongst us where we're kind of Black Lives Matter when the police does it, right? But then in our own neighborhoods and whatnot, there's shootings happening, there's beef happening, there's this, that. Why is there no protest in the streets when that's going on? I mean, that's worse to me. If me killing my own brother, I mean, versus someone who's already hated me killing me, it's not the same, right?
So, like you said, we have to take those an internal look and see what our own issues are, so we can address them within ourselves. Addressing, you know, gun violence, addressing colorism in the Black community, addressing in the Black community that we don't want to have these difficult conversations. So we address those things internal first, and then take it external. Right. Take it to the government, take it to the streets and to everybody, so that the world and society as a whole can hear these things.
Because if we're really seeking reparations, right, we have to be a collective nation, pretty much. Because when you're asking for something, well, who are they going to delegate it to? Because we're so divided. Well, who do we give these reparations to, right? So coming together and creating that union within our own selves will kind of make the task easier, to be honest with you. Right?
100%.
Right? You know, you build up our governmental structure, whatever it is we need to build up. You know, but back in the days we had judges, things like that, right? Yeah. So maybe take some points from the book, right?
Look back and again, educate yourself on what things have worked, what things haven't worked, how we can go about making change, and of course, change is not going to be a linear process. Definitely, it's not going to just be success, and we win. And we've seen that in the past. So we have to be ready for setbacks. We have to be ready for some failures. We have to be ready for it to be a long fight, a hard fight. And again, as we're saying, we have to take that constant action. We have to stay focused and consistent, because it's going to be easy to get frustrated, to get upset with just the state of society, really. I get upset every time I think about it. Every time I look into history more and more, it's upsetting. It really is. It's hard to deal with, but that's the change that we need to make, so that 401 years from today, we're not still having the same conversation.
And the saying, pressure makes diamonds, right? That's the saying, pressure makes diamonds. Yeah. And sometimes you need to get that pressure applied, apply that pressure, and then, eventually you get what you want.
And I'm telling you, I've seen the pressure lately. I've felt the pressure in Remember the 400. We've been going hard. I've been seeing other people trying to join us, work with us, volunteer with us. I've seen other organizations really just applying the pressure right now. And it's a beautiful thing to see. It just needs to keep on going. Yeah. It needs to keep happening.
Keep happening. And even with that, August is our Freedom Month. And this is something that we're pushing for. We're pushing for that change. And we want this to be perpetual, not just 2020, 2021, 2022. We're pushing for these changes, right? Changes that will positively reflect on us, right? And that's something that we really need. And I'm excited. I'm really excited for this August. It's the first of many, right? And this is something that we're gonna maybe it might be a small step, but it's still a step nonetheless, right? And we're pushing for this. And those who are in Toronto, UK, New York, New Jersey, Atlanta, Missouri, St. Louis, join us August 23rd, where we're gonna be taking our voices to the streets.
We have rallies, marches, programs.
Yep. And really just being that voice, applying that pressure. Because if we're quiet, no one's going to hear us, right? So we're really going to apply that pressure. And those who really feel the same and you have that desire and that fire within you to do so, join us.
And like I touched on briefly before, August is also a celebration for us. we have come so far as a people. This last 401 years, despite our oppression, despite everything we've gone through, we've managed to make significant contributions to every place we've been in. We've managed to help build these countries. We've managed to invent, to innovate. And so we also want to celebrate that, celebrate all the things that we've done to this point. Because again, there is a dark history, a bad history, but we have a good history as well. You know, we have these things that we've contributed that we need to celebrate our resiliency, celebrate all it took for us to literally be alive, sitting here, having this conversation with you guys. It takes a lot. And so come August, you can come celebrate with us on the 23rd. You can celebrate with us all of our events that we have. We have social media events. We have, you know, different things that we want to implement and keep on doing. And so it's been a busy month for us because we're celebrating, because we're working so hard, because we want that social lasting change.
Right. And in the meantime, in that celebration, don't lose sight of why we're doing this, right? Yes, we came a long way, but we still got to remember there's so much more to go. So definitely. But with that being said, you know, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. I had a blast with my friend Tia here, and it
was a short conversation, but I think we touched on a lot of great points. So if you guys want to send us any messages, any questions, any comments.
I think we got a question here.
Okay.
Where can they go for more information on Remember the 400?
Okay, so we have our website, www.rememberthe400.com, and then we're on all social media platforms. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and again, Remember the 400 on YouTube, so you can reach out to us on any of those platforms. As we mentioned, we have branches here in Toronto, London, England. We have many throughout the United States, so we're close enough to you. If you want to work with us, volunteer with us, definitely let us know. We'd be so happy and honored to have your help.
Yeah.
You mentioned that August the 23rd is a big day. You're marching?
Yes, so here in Toronto, we have a march, and we also have a rally, a program at the end, and we want to see 1 million people. So if you're in the city of Toronto, come out with us. If you go on our social media, you'll see all the details you need. Again, if you have any questions, let us know. And we're doing this in London. We're doing this in St. Louis. We're doing this in Atlanta, New Jersey. And so contact us. We want to hear from you. We want to see you on the 23rd. We want to celebrate with you. We want to protest with you. We want to march with you.
What about if there's someone who is completely super excited about what your message is and wants to do something on the 23rd, but they live in Germany? What do you suggest they do?
I would suggest, you know, there's a lot of different ways that you can get involved. There's a lot of different ways that you can be an activist. And thank God that we have, you know, online, social media. Yep. We have all these platforms to get involved, to get connected. So if you're in Germany and you can't physically come out, or anywhere else and you can't physically come out, you can still share your voice with us online.
Repost. You can repost. If you want to maybe write on a sign, remember the 400, tag us in it. We'll repost you on our story. We'll give you a shout out. And that's really what it is, man. Just the beauty of the internet nowadays. And you don't have to be there physically, but you're still there.
And we also on the 24th have a virtual event, which is a platform for the youth of Remember the 400 to share their thoughts on society, to show their talents, to talk about the changes that we want to see. So no matter where you are on this globe, on the 24th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, if you come to our YouTube channel, Remember the 400, you'll see our youth showcase called the I Am More event. And that's another way that you can get involved with us in this Freedom Month. You can celebrate with us, and you can share your voice.
Literally a mouse click, thumb tap away, literally.
So you guys can join us in all of these endeavors we have, and we thank you so much.
Thank you.
Story. It marks both our enslavement and our emancipation. And it deserves to be understood, commemorated, celebrated. It's time.
Join us as we officially recognize August as Freedom Month. Sign the petition, donate, and celebrate with us on August 23rd as we take over the cities of Toronto, Canada, St. Louis, Missouri, Englewood, New Jersey, Atlanta, Georgia, and London, United Kingdom. This is an internationally recognized movement. August is Freedom Month. It's time.
Keep not thou silent, O God, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make atonement, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, the tabernacles of Edom, and the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hagarenes, Gebal and Ammon, Amalek, the Philistines, with the inhabitants of Tyre. Asher also is joined with them. They have helped the children of Lot, Selah. Do unto them as the Midianites, as to Sisera, as to Jaban at the brook of Kishon, which perished in Endor. They became as dung for the earth. Make their nobles like Oreb, like Zeb, yea, all their princes as Zebah, as Zalmunna, who said, Let us take ourselves the houses of God in possession. O my God, make them like a wheel, and as the stubble before the wind. As the fire burneth a wood, and as a flame setteth the mountains on fire, so persecute them with thy tempest, and make them afraid with thy storm. Fill their faces with shame, that they may seek thy name, O Lord. Let them be confounded and troubled forever. Yea, let them that put to shame and perish, that men may know that thou art, whose name alone is Jehovah, art most high over all the earth. Selah and Selah. Amen. Peace, everyone, and good afternoon, and welcome again to another Saturday here at the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. As you all know by now, and at this particular time, we are celebrating August as our Freedom Month. This is the month that we recognize, and again, I do have to acknowledge through the wisdom of our elder Shadrach, who founded, again, this very organization called Remember the 400. As you've noticed that the Remember the 400 has very close ties to the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. What we are doing, we are setting out for the next, I would say, 400 years, as the title is, the name of the organization is Remember the 400. We are setting in progress, and we are putting the steps together that would see the resurrection and the rebirth of our people, our nation, for the next 400 years. That is the goal, what we're trying to accomplish. That is what we are doing. We're not here to ask for somebody to give us August as our month. We're taking that which is ours and rightfully ours, because all throughout history, our history as a people, we've noticed that August has been a significant month for us. August was the time that our forefathers came to this part of the Americas in the United States in 1619, 400 years ago. And all the contributions that our people have made from that time until now, all the advancements, all the hardships, all the pain, all the suffering that we have gone through for these 400 years, we are here to celebrate that, and we are reclaiming, we are taking back that which is ours, which is our right to choose. So we chose the month of August simply because it had the most significance for us as a people, for us as a nation. So therefore, we are moving forward. My first experience with having the idea and the concept of August being our month came to me many years ago through our elder Shadrach, who illustrated and highlighted the important things that first started within the Caribbean and started with the government of the Great Britain. So it was the England government, the government of England, who first started most of all that we see. And here we are today in a position that we can actually come out of the smoke-filled room and where we can see the significance of the month of August. So we're not trying to lay too much claim anymore to February, which we know for us is the shortest the coldest month, and a month that is very insignificant to us as a people. Last year, 2019, we took a trip to Virginia, and we were there to commemorate the 400 years of the first African, as they called us, the first African indentured servants, as they called some of us, as the young ones highlighted, indentured servants. Now they're saying internship. It's such a way that they spin things to try and lessen our importance and to lessen the things that took place for us as a people and the things that happened to us as a people. But let's not get anything twisted. It was slavery. It was and still is slavery, and it will be slavery for a very, very long time. When I look and analyze a lot of things that have taken place, I've always, if not for most of the time, it's a personal connection because of who you are as a people. And then to come into the understanding and the knowledge of who you are, not being seen as an African Canadian or African Caribbean or African American, but to actually know that you are something much, much more than to be called an African hyphenated something. To come to that knowledge and to come to that understanding of my true identity, which is an Israelite, it is the greatest gift that I can ever hope to have accomplished or to be given. Because as we know out there, those of us who tune in, those of us who are following us, those of us who know who we are, you too, yourself, you know that you are an Israelite. And you have acknowledged that fact. And so what you see is an awakening among our people. The spirit has been stirred amongst our people for us to understand and to realize our true identity. And with that identity, it comes the acknowledgement of slavery. You have to acknowledge slavery. Slavery is not something that we run from. It's not something that we hide from. We're not trying to sweep it under the rug, because our slavery and what happened to us as a people, it identifies who we are. And through that slavery, we see the connection of who we are to this book, this Bible, these holy scriptures. For most of us, if not all of us, prior to the knowledge of being Israelites, we were all Christians at one point in time. We were all under the domination of Christianity, and as Elder Michael would put it, Freemason. He calls it Freemasonry Christianity, or Christian Freemasonry, which is basically what it is. There is a mystery system, as they have coined it, a system that is in place, that has always been in place. It just changed names and changed faces over a period of time, but yet it still remains that very same mystery system that has been there from day one. And what we try to do to the best of our ability is that we try to educate and enlighten and to bring this awareness to our people. Those of us that are out there in cyberland, you know that we are Israelites, and that is first and foremost of what we really and truly are. And that is what we teach. We teach that we are the children of Israel, the people written about in the book, the people of the scriptures, is what we are in a nutshell. And slavery has been an integral part of our history from day one, stretching all the way back to the Old Testament. Slavery has been a part of our culture to the point where we have been enslaved by other nations as a form of punishment from our God to us, just so that we would remember who we are. So therefore, we remember the 400, we remember who we are, we remember our history, we remember our culture, and we remember the stories in this book called the Bible. One thing I've always tried to illustrate is that we are in a world and in a situation where, as I read in Psalm 83, that things were taken away from us, our history and our culture. The nations were confederate against us. So you see, what we're experiencing today really and truly isn't something new. What we experienced those 400 years ago in coming to the shores of Virginia in 1619 was nothing new. When we came to the Caribbean, it was nothing new. So what we have to ask ourselves simply is this. I've got probably 4 questions, and I'm really not going to get too much into this because on this day, I do like to dive into the scriptures. Now that I've found out who I am, now that there is such a profound connection to this book, there is a love for who I am, my culture and my people, my identity. And having this book prepared for me, it is like the gift from my Father to all of my people, is to be able to understand and to be able to have the knowledge of this book and all the 66 chapters therein. So the question is this: was slavery wrong? And that is something that we need to ask. And not of ourselves only, but to ask everyone else, was slavery wrong? And I think the answer would always turn out to be yes. A resounding yes, that slavery was wrong. So if slavery was wrong, what was perpetuated against my people, what took place to my people, if it was wrong, why has there been no apology? Why has nobody stepped up to apologize? Now, it might come as a surprise to some of us, but 11 years ago, the year 2009, on June 18th, the United States Senate made a public apology to those descendants of slavery. How many of us actually knew that took place? How many of us know that happened? I think, if I'm correct, that there are not many people who know about it. And there's not many people who are made aware of that apology. So something was wrong. One particular United States, one Senate attempted to apologize for it, but obviously nobody heard about it. Nobody knew anything. It wasn't something that was known in the media. And it makes you wonder, why did they keep it such as a hush-hush? Such a major important event took place, but yet nobody seems to know anything about it. There is nothing that's highlighted about it. There's nothing that it's brought to attention. But I'm quite sure that once they Remember the 400 organization has gotten wind and all the details and what needs to be known, it will be made as public as possible. Also, along the lines of this whole reparations topic, there is currently a bill in the United States Senate called H.R. 40. And that H.R. 40 is a bill that I want as many of us who can, if you can research and start to get to know what this bill is all about, you will start to understand that we are well on the way to making sure that this entire world knows of the plight and knows of the situation and knows of the state of our people today, because it's extremely important. We needed to have that apology. An apology was made, but not an apology that was made by all parties that were involved. Because there has to be an apology, because you first have to admit something is wrong, something that you've done wrong. And this is something that I've learned over the years, that if you've done something wrong, something to offend someone, and I would say that we were greatly offended, if not even more so than being offended. We were brutalized, we were raped, we were kidnapped, we were tortured. All these things were done against us, and yet people would still have the gall and the audacity to say, well, it wasn't our fault, it wasn't my parents, I didn't do it, so why should I have to apologize? Why should I have to pay reparations? Why should I have to do this, and why should I have to do that? But yet it seems that you're comfortable in living off of the backs and living off of the contributions and living off of the slavery that your forefathers did. The inheritance that you received from your parents and their great-grandparents, is a result of the slavery that was inflicted on our people. So when people say and make comments like that, be very careful and listen carefully to what they're saying. So, was slavery wrong? And why no apology? And if there was nothing wrong with it, why were the slave owners and the slave masters compensated? Why were the slave masters and the slave owners compensated? In other words, why were they paid to free their slaves, but yet they were not the slaves? These are the questions that we need to ask. These are the questions that need to be answered, because the next question is, who paid them? Who paid the slave masters? Who paid the slave owners? And that's when we start to open up a whole new can of worms. When we start to open up that dialogue, then we start to see the root and the foundation and the cause of why we are here today and why we can't progress as a people. Even till this day, we still can't receive an apology from the government of Great Britain. We've heard words like, it was a grim time. We've heard things like deep regrets. Like, these are not apologies. It has to start with that apology. And once we get to that apology, things will start to happen for us as a people. This is a network and a channel for Israelites, for those of us who know and understand who we are and what our identity is. Because without our identity, we are absolutely nothing. Our identity is what holds us together. It is what binds us together as a people. For a people without an identity is like a tree without roots. And any tree that has no roots is destined to fall. So that's why it's important for us. We are not just simply black people. We are not just simply people of color. We are Israelites. We are the Israelites who have descended from Israelites written about in this book. And I think that's about as much time that I will spend simply on that topic, because I want to get into a story. And one of the ways in which we learn as a people, we learn about who we are. We educate who we are, and we educate our children simply from the stories that our forefathers told us. If you hadn't noticed that the Israelite nation, Worldwide Ministries, is on the forefront, we are at the starting point. We are at the leading, most authority is who we are. And I probably did forget to mention that we are not affiliated with any other group, organization, camp, team, whatever you might call it, that bears the name Israelite or anything similar to who we are. We simply stand out alone, and we are not affiliated with anyone else except for the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. We have our locations and our branches throughout the world, and those branches are associated with us here at headquarters. So let's get into a few things as to what you've been seeing. What you have been seeing from us quite recently is a real push for us to celebrate this month of August. Again, we acknowledged August because it's the beginning, it's the ending, and it's so much for us has happened as a people. So much for us has happened on a global scale when it comes to the month of August. So we will highlight that, and we will celebrate this month going forward for the rest of our days. Whether or not people acknowledge it, whether or not governments, municipalities acknowledge this month, we will acknowledge it. We have the power to acknowledge, and we have the power to force change simply by our actions and not asking for someone else to give us permission to. We will actually take this and run with it because it is ours. Last night, if you hadn't noticed, it was an amazing, amazing presentation by our Atlanta branch, and I want to shout out to the Atlanta branch. Big up yourselves. I want to actually shout out the UK branch for what they did, and big up yourselves, UK. Everything that we're doing right now, it's, to me, I sit back and I watch some of these videos, and I tune in, and I see the progress of my people, and I see that we are truly different in everything that we do. At the same time, I see a lot of old techniques and things that have been used by our people that we kept repeating. But yet, what we're doing now is completely new and refreshing. It is a start of something that will bring about change, and not just change just because, but change with a reason. And at the root of all this, of what we're doing, is that we're acknowledging ourselves, we're acknowledging our culture, we're acknowledging who we are to be different, and we are trailblazers. This Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries, we are blazing the trail for the next generations to come. Last night, I sat and I watched my nieces and my nephews, and I saw the future of our nation. The week prior to that, I saw the future of our nation. And even today, I'm sitting and I'm watching Taya, and I'm looking at Jacob, and I'm seeing the future of our nation. Prior to that, Ezekiel and Jakim, I'm looking and I'm seeing all the greatness that our nation is bringing forth. And had it not been, believe it or not, had it not been for this COVID-19 situation, we probably would not have seen all of this. But in all of this darkness, all of this pandemic that's there, you are seeing the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries as you've never seen us before. And I am so proud of each and every one of my brethren, from across the sea to across the border, to see that what they're doing in representing our nation and representing who you are. It is profound, and it has held a place in my heart, because this year, 2020, is like a year that I have never experienced, and at a time that I've never experienced. I thought 2019 was something. When we went down to Virginia and we presented the journey and we had the I Am More youth event, I thought that was really amazing. But to follow that up with the year 2020, I can truly see that our Father's hand, that our God's hand is working with us. So what I'm going to do right now is this. We're going to go into the scriptures, and we're going to go to the book of Daniel, because the book of Daniel reminds me of what I have been seeing in these past few weeks, in these past month that I've been experiencing my life as a practicing Israelite. For the past 30 years, I haven't seen anything like what I'm seeing in these days. And it says here in the book of Daniel, from the first chapter, in the first chapter, verse 1, it says, "In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem, and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. And the king spake to Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes." So for those of us who are not familiar, this is a situation where, again, the children of Israel, our forefathers, our land that we used to have was invaded. And this time we were invaded by another foreign invader. This is Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, at this particular time, came and invaded. And this is what they commanded. And it said here in verse 4, "Children in whom was no blemish, but well favored, and skillful in all wisdom and cunning in knowledge and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learnings and the tongue of the Chaldeans." What they were doing is that they wanted the best of the best. So when we speak proudly of ourselves being Israelites, and when you see the children of the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries, and the way that they are so well articulated and the way that they present themselves, we take great pride in educating, self-educating first and foremost, our children and our families of our identity, because this is of the utmost importance for you to have an identity. But what you're seeing here also is that it's saying that children in whom was no blemish, but well-favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning in knowledge and understanding science, such as had the ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. The Chaldeans wanted our children. Does that sound familiar? Does that story sound like something you can connect with? That another nation would always want our children, our inheritance, because our children are gifted naturally. They are educated. Once you have to start to put all of these teachings into your children, we are not just Israelites just to say that we're Israelites. We are Israelites because we want our children to make this world a better place. And in doing so, you can't just be just anyone. Our children, as you can see, were well favored. And the king appointed, verse 5, them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Now among these were the children of Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names, for he gave unto Daniel the name Belshazzar, and to Hananiah Shadrach, and to Mishael Meshach, and unto Azariah of Abednego. Again, does this sound familiar? You take captives, you take the best of the captives, those that are skilled and those that are knowledgeable, and those that have cunning and understanding, and you change their names. Notice what's taking place. They captured our people, they took the best of our people, and then they changed their names. This is a story, the story of our people. Well, verse 8, it says this: But Daniel proposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. And therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. When you have Israelite children and you ingrain in them the importance of their identity and of who they are, it is nourishment to the soul. Those children will not depart from the culture and the education of who they are, because to be an Israelite is the most important thing in the entire world. To be who you are. It is who you are. It is the essence of what you are meant to be. So as you see with this example with Daniel being captured, still had the understanding, still had the might to know in his mind that he would not turn and he would not take any portion of the king's meat or the wine. Now in verse 9, now God had brought Daniel into favor and turned to love with the prince of the eunuchs. These are the benefits and the things that happen to you when you start to become and when you start to practice who you are. The world starts to take notice of who you are, and your environment takes notice of who you are. Once you make that statement and that claim that you are an Israelite, and then you start to live the life and walk in the path of an Israelite, your environment changes around you, even to the point where people will start to favor you. And it says here in verse 10, and the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed your meat and your drink, for why should he see your faces worse liking than the children which are of your sort? Then shall he make me endanger my head to the king. Then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs has set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. And then let our countenance be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat the portion of the king's meat, as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he consented to them in this matter, and proved them 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, their countenance appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat of the portion of the king's meat. Thus Melzar took away the portion of their meat and wine that they would drink, and gave them pulse. So these are the things that we have to learn to do as Israelites. Once you have that firm understanding as to who you are, that firm foundation as to what your God represents, turn to your God, and now you test the spirit to see whether or not the God of Israel is there for you. And that's what Daniel did at such a young age. He realized and understood that his pride as a child of the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob would not allow him to defile himself with the king's meat or the king's wine, that he made a deal and said, you know what, give us pulse that we would eat. And for 10 days, you should turn and see what we would look like. And so it was proved that testing the spirit, it would always benefit the children of Israel. And so that is your spirituality. Test your spirituality. Test the spirit that leads and guides you. And that spirit, if it is of the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, that spirit will always guide you into the right direction as to where you should go. And it says here, and in verse 17, as for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. You have to pay very close attention to the stories that we're reading now, because we are a people that inherently always like to talk about dreams and talk about visions. And you wonder where we get it from, the dreams and the visions. But let's not get anything twisted here. These dreams and these visions that we're referring to, if you notice the environment, if you notice the person of who Daniel is, Daniel was an Israelite, a practicing Israelite. Daniel is someone who's connected to the God of Israel. Daniel is not a Muslim. Daniel is not a Buddhist. Daniel is not a Christian. Daniel is an Israelite. So the messages that you're seeing from the Israelite book of life, it is not a generic message for anyone out there to say that God will give me visions and God will give me understanding of all these things. The connection has to be there with the God of Israel, and his people, the Israelites, have to know who they are. You can't be a Christian. You can't be someone who is a Buddhist. You can't be someone who is a Taoist. You can't be someone who is just simply out there and want to connect your spirit with the spirit of the God in this Bible, because that's not how the program works. Daniel knew that. So let's continue to read. And it says here in verse 18, now at the end of the days of the king that had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king communed with them. And listen to this. And among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were all in his realm. And Daniel continued unto the first year of King Cyrus. So it's not that they were the best in the courtyard, in the immediate palace of the king, but the entire realm of the king of Babylon, he found none wiser and none more skilled in wisdom than these 4 children of Israel. These Israelite children stood out above the rest because they had a consistent link to their God. They had a consistent communication with the God of Israel. They knew exactly who they were. They knew exactly what their identity was and what their role was. Even in this situation, when you are a captive in another land, you do not relinquish your culture. You don't relinquish your God. You don't relinquish your identity of who you are. It is what makes us who we are. The nations envy us because we are Israelites. The nations know that we are Israelites. Even to this day, in the year 2020, the nations know that we, the children of slavery, are the Israelites, the people of the book, and they will continue to fight against us simply because they are envious of the relationship that we have with our God. A relationship that cannot be broken, a relationship that will always stand the test of time. That relationship is the covenant that the children of Israel have with the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. I'm going to continue because, as I said, this story, it is completely relevant to who we are as a people today. Chapter 2, and in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans, for to show the king his dream, so that they came and stood before the king. The Chaldeans, as you can see, they're cut above the rest, that they're mentioned specifically in this chapter here. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we shall show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me. If you will not make known to me the dream with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, you and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But if you show the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. Then answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and he will show the interpretation of it. It's starting to upset the king. The king answered and said, I know of certainty that ye would again gain the time, because ye see the thing is gone from me. But if ye will not make known unto me the dream, there be for one decree for you. For you have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me, till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know. Ye shall show me the interpretation thereof. So the king is putting it out there. I dreamed a dream. The dream troubled me. I want you to tell me the dream, and not only tell me the dream, but I want the interpretation of the dream. And if you don't bring me the interpretation of the dream, you shall be put to death. This is a hard task, because this is an impossible task. Not just hard. Verse 10, the Chaldeans answered before the king and said, there is not a man upon the earth that shall show the king the matter. Therefore this no king, lord, nor ruler that asks such things at any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. It is a rare thing that the king requireth, and there is none other that can show it before the king, except the gods whose dwellings is not with flesh. There is so much in these scriptures, but I really don't have the time to get into it. But just so that you know, we are a people that doesn't take much convincing for us to know that there is another side to what you see here in the flesh. We're not a people that are strangers to these things. We know that there is a side to all life that is not here in the flesh. So here you are seeing evidence of that. Except the gods whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and he commanded to destroy all the wise men in Babylon. These are not just wise men who have knowledge. These are wise men who knew things. And again, we don't have the time to elaborate. But these are not your typical wise men. Verse 14, then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom of Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which had gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. And he answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hasted from the king? And Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time, and that he would show the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions. What Taya and Jacob spoke about just briefly, about getting together as a people to solve and to bring to an understanding the methods that it would take to understand the dilemma that we are in. You have to be of one mindset. You have to be in one accord, as we call it here, as there is at the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. You have to be in one accord. In order to find a solution to our people, you have to be in one accord. The other nations will not respect what you bring forth to the table if you're not on the same page. If one is this, another is that, and someone is someone else, if there is no unity among the people, the other nations will not respect you. The Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries brings together unity under the spirit of truth. And that is what we bring together. That is what we are doing. So that when we go before those who are in rule over us, we are coming with one consent, with one mindset, with one goal in tow. And it is not something that is going to be deviated from. We're not going to separate ourselves. We are coming with one goal and with one aim, with one spirit. And it says here, and Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time and that he would show the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah his companions, and they would desire mercies. This is what we do. They would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning the secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. We went to our God. In times of trouble, in times of distress, we get together and we pray as one to our God. That is the solution of what we do as a people. We take all our teachings from this book. Verse 19, then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Notice the steps. Notice what's taking place. We as a people have founded ourselves on the foundation that our God, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, is the foundation of who we are. If you notice with all these movements and everything that is out there, no one is calling on the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. No one is acknowledging our Father. No one acknowledges who we are. So there is no help for us. We have to take back that which is ours. Our God belongs to us. He is our strength. He is our Redeemer. It is that same God that shall bring us out again from whatever it is that we are in, whatever mire, whatever situation, whatever depths of despair that we are in as a people. It is our God, in the acknowledging of Him. When we acknowledge our God to be the source of all that we have, now we start to gain His attention. Because right now He has no attention focused on the children of Jacob. His attention is not there. How can other nations respect you when you don't respect yourself? The other nations know who you are. It's not a mystery. They know who you are. They're waiting for you to reclaim your culture, for you to reclaim your heritage and to take that back. As far-fetched as it might seem, as they might try to make it seem, as some people might try to belittle you and laugh at you when you say that you are an Israelite, They know deep down inside that you are who you say you are. And until we as a people can collectively come to that understanding and that knowledge, we're not going to gain any traction or any gain in the sight of all the other nations that are out there. Well, this is what we're doing at the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. And it says here in verse 21, and he changed the times. So let me go back to verse 20. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changed the times and the seasons, and he removeth kings and setteth up kings, and he giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. It's important for us to know this because nobody believes in the Bible anymore. No one believes in the Bible except for the children of Israel, except for the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. People have gone to such great lengths so as to rewrite the Bible and to give you new versions and to give you new things and to give you new books for you to go to. No one except for the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries believes in these 66 books. So that's why we stand firm in our belief and the understanding of who we are. These are our stories. Verse 22. And he revealeth the deep and the secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. Referring to the God of Israel. I thank thee and praise thee, thou God of my fathers, who hast given me wisdom and might, and has made known unto me now what we desired of thee. For thou hast now made known unto us the king's matter. Excuse me. Therefore Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, Destroy not the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king the interpretation. And Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, I have found a man of the captives of Judah, that will make known unto the king the interpretation. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, Art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen, and the interpretation thereof? Listen to Daniel's answer. Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, The secret which the king hath demanded, cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king? Can they not? Do they not have power to show the answer unto the king? But this is what Daniel says. Verse 28, But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and thy vision of thy head upon thy bed are these. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter. And he that revealeth secret maketh known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom, that I should more than any living, but for their sakes, that they shall make known the interpretation to the king, and what thou mightest known, thy thoughts of thy hearts. Thou, king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut without hands, which smote the image upon his feet, and there were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron and the clay, the brass, the silver, the gold broken in pieces, together and became like the shaft of the summer threshing floor, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This is the dream. This is the dream. So Daniel revealed the dream. Daniel got the revelation of the dream from the Spirit of truth, his God. So he told the king what he dreamt. This is something that no man could do. Only the Spirit could give that to Daniel, and he acknowledged the Spirit that gave him that. And he said, not from me, but so that you people would know, that you would know who is in charge and who is the God in heaven. This verse 36, this is a dream, and we will tell the interpretation, therefore, before the king. Thou king, thou art a king of kings. For the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. Notice, who gives these things out? Regardless of who the kings are upon the face of the earth, they have to answer to one king. And that king is the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And he will give them their allotted time for them to rule. But verse 38, and wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. And after thee shall arise another kingdom, inferior to thee, and a third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And a fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, forsomuch as iron breaketh in pieces, and subdueth all things. And as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes part of potter's clay, and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. But there shall be in it of the strength of iron, forsomuch as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet, part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And in the days of these kings shall be of God's heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Verse 45, for as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. Verse 46, then Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face and worshipped Daniel, and commanded that they should offer oblation and sweet odors unto him. Verse 47, the king answered unto Daniel and said, of a truth, it is that your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, and a revealer of secrets, seeing thou couldst reveal this secret. So Nebuchadnezzar is acknowledging Daniel's God, and that's what has to take place. The nations have to acknowledge our God, and without the nations acknowledging our God, there is no peace. There is no apology to be given. Once that takes place, and once that happens, the world will be turned upside down. We as a people first have to start with ourselves. We can't start by pointing the finger. We can't start by asking for help. We have the power right here and now to make August Freedom Month. And we don't have to ask anyone. We don't have to beg anyone to do these things. We have the power to decide to no longer, in the months of cold and death, to celebrate anything. We can celebrate right here and now. We have the power to do that, and no one can tell us that we can't. We have the power to take back our identity, our culture, our God, our book, our Bible, everything that is ours. We have the power to do that, and no one can tell us we can't. We're not asking anymore. We're not begging anymore. We are simply taking back that which is ours, and our God belongs to us. And as you can see in these scriptures here, Nebuchadnezzar is acknowledging to Daniel, mind you, this is the king of Babylon. And at this time, he ruled the entire earth, as it was all the way from Babylon stretching down to Egypt and anything else in between. That was the world at this time. And there was no greater king than Nebuchadnezzar at this time. But even this great king had to acknowledge these 4 young Israelite children that were in his courtyard, that their God was the God of all gods. And you know, nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. There is nothing new under the sun. My people that I speak to today, you need to know and understand who you are. It is the most important thing that we can do. Knowing who we are, acknowledging that fact, teaching our children who they are, so that the future can be theirs when they go off to college and when they go off to university, when they have this inside of them. You can see already from the children that were highlighted on this channel, you can see the future already. I am so proud of all my nieces and my nephews and of my children that you can see that the future truly is ours. We didn't have this growing up. We didn't know who we were growing up. We had no culture. There was no such thing as black culture. What is black culture? There is no such thing. There is no root. There is no foundation. There is no beginning, and there is no end. But if you talk about Israelite culture, you can see that there is a foundation. You can see that there is a grassroots foundation. You can see the spirit that resides in us as a people. You can see the connection to these scriptures as to who we are. And if you can see that, you can build upon that. And if you can build upon that, you can see the future and who we are. What we're trying to bring about is the resurrection of our people, the building of this nation, the building of a new tomorrow. It is definitely here with the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries. As we have stressed before, our elder Shadrach, he took such great lengths in showing us what it would be like and what we should structure ourselves as. We have our own constitution. We have our own anthem. We have our own flag. We have everything that belongs to us. We are a nation within a nation. We are that nation that was cut from the mountain without hands is who we are. The Spirit is what guides this nation. The Spirit of truth, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob continues to walk with us as a people. And we will continue to work for our God, knowing who we are, knowing what tomorrow will bring. We are not afraid of what tomorrow will bring. We know and acknowledge the power of our God. And if this message is something that resonates with you, if it's something that speaks to you, please, by all means, smash the like button. Throw some thumbs up. Acknowledge who we are. Look out for the things that we are doing. When it comes to Remember the 400, know that we are progressive. Know that what we are doing is we are about to bring about change, positive change in the right direction. Not just change just to shout on the street corner. We're not here looking for equality. How can we look for equality? How can we look for justice in a land that was stolen? In stolen land, you're looking for justice. But what you can do is you can return to your God. You can return to who you are. You can return to your culture, the basis of who you are, and that can never be taken away. You can acknowledge the slavery that took place because it is our history. It is something that happened to us For if we do not acknowledge slavery and the things that took place over the past 400 years, we can have no foundation. We can have no memory. We have to remember the 400. Remember what took place for us as a people and to us as a people. Remember your God, children of Israel. Remember where you're coming from, and remember the journey that we are taking. And I don't know if I have much time today. Are there any questions? I don't believe there are any for myself. No? I don't think so, right?
No, nothing.
No questions? I mean, it's a proud feeling that I have to stand here before you, knowing that I'm someone who came from a background, as with all of us, of no identity. So now that I know my identity, now that I have that which was missing for all those years, it's not something that I'm going to let go anytime soon. And the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries, remember the 400 Foundation, we're all proud to acknowledge who we are, and we're all proud to see the gains that we've made and the steps that we've taken over these past few months and these past years. Yes?
So you mentioned that you talked about Daniel
Mhm.
and his brothers, and you mentioned that there's activity happening currently because of the things that has been against our people. The question really is, what do you say is going to be the impact of all the marches, of all the protests, of all the crying out of the children of Jacob, if they don't, like you mentioned, have the God of Israel?
That's a very good question. A very, very good question. And the way I could answer this is that history has a way of repeating itself, which is why, again, I have to point to Remember the 400. When we talk about Remember the 400, we are acknowledging our history from the past 400 years. You know, maybe after this we could acknowledge the 400 years prior to that, but at this particular set time, we're going to acknowledge our history as a people in the past 400 years. And in acknowledging that, we are going to analyze what worked for us as a people, what didn't work for us as a people, the platforms that we stood upon as a people, and the platforms that we raised as a people. You can talk about being Pan-Africanist. You can talk about being Christians. You can talk about being Buddhist. You can talk about being transgender and all those things. And you can see that our people, we have tried all of them. We tried everything. When it came to politics, we tried even education in the secular sense. We have tried economics. We have tried just about everything. But never have we gone back to the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob to say that we're going to try this, that we're going to do this. We're going to go back to the culture of who we were, acknowledging that we were Israelites once upon a time, and go back to that. We have never done that as a people, and therefore, with all the rallies and with all the marches and everything that you're seeing, it will come and it will go. If you notice something, it came at a time where basically we had nothing to do. There were no sports to watch. There was nothing on TV to do. There was nothing. Now that they've brought back all the sports and everything else, you're hearing less and less and less about all these rallies. And the corporations have now pretty much dropped all those hashtags, and they're not really supporting it anymore. It's almost as if it died off. I mean, this is not the first time that these things have happened to us. If you go back to 1992, most recently, you saw what happened. You saw what took place. And you saw the beating of the person. And what happened to those police officers? What happened? They all got off. So what do you think is going to happen to those officers who took George Floyd's life? What do you think? I'm willing to bet, if anybody wants to bet me any money, they're going to get off. And if they don't get off, it'll be some very, very light sentences, maybe some restructuring and send them to another department. But as you can see, that shortly thereafter, if not within hours, within days, that someone else died, someone else was shot, someone else, like it continues to happen. Still no change. Still no change. But what we're doing is we're creating awareness. So the 400 years that we're focusing on, it's not just to talk about it. We're giving you these 400 years so that you can see as well what worked for us and what didn't work for us. Did our state of being change, or did we advance, or did we not advance? And make no mistake about it, reparations is not something that was spoken about just recently. We're going way back, way back to the emancipation. From the moment that they were emancipated in the U.S., we were crying out for reparations, and still nothing. Still no advancement. Still, our people are at the bottom of everything. But yet you see all of our gifts and everything pouring out to the point where there is no United States unless the children of Jacob were there. There is no current modern day society unless our people have been involved in it in some way, shape, or form. But that's what we're doing. We're acknowledging, we're highlighting, and we're making it known that the only solution for us as a people is returning back to our God. The only solution. So I hope I've answered it. I hope that it could be illustrated enough for us to understand. The 400 years is for us to remember, for us to never forget, because we are a people who have a tendency to forget. And I don't know why you would want to forget all these things that took place, because it is those memories, the pain of those memories, is what makes us who we are today, so that we would always say, never again will we turn away from the God of Israel. Never again are we going to leave our God and our culture and what we are to trade it for something else. This 400 years that just started, it is the dawning of a new age of Israelite that you're going to see and witness, and you will see the power of our God, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, resurrect his people yet again. I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I want to thank you for coming out and for all the things that we're doing here in the month of August. Please hit us up, join us, walk with us, fight with us, celebrate with us as we make this August our Freedom Month worldwide. Peace, everyone.
To my elder, to my priesthood, to my brothers and sisters, to the children and all the saints, I salute you. Now to him who was and is to come, to the Holy One, the only true and living God of Israel, I open my heart to you today. I have this one thing that I gotta say, and it's simply this. Yes, seasons always change, but you remain the same. People come and go, that's for sure. Your word is forevermore, Lord. Teach me faith. Seasons always change, but you remain the same. People come and go, that's for sure. Your word is forevermore, Lord. Please teach me faith. Seasons always change, but you remain the same. People come and go, that's for sure. Your word is forevermore, Lord. Please teach me faith. always change, but you remain the same. People come and go, that's for sure. Your word is forevermore, Lord. Please teach me faith. Oh God of Israel, I love you so, but life it tosses me to and fro. Still I hear you in the deep, calling to deep, yeah. Confirming light and salvation. My imagination, friends keep telling me, but still I will remain. It's slightly changed to your love, to your word, to your will, to your love, to your word, to your will. There are times when this loneliness is too much for me, pushing me down to the ground. But now I can see my way.